So what's going on, guys? DIY Dan, Saltwater Junkie here again, and in this video I'm actually going to be building a bristle worm trap. I had an infestation start in the bottom 29 gallon on the right hand side, and those bristle worms were able to thrive in that aquarium because the only thing that was in there was a carpet anemone and a clownfish, and basically nothing else was able to be in there because of the carpet anemone possibly eating it. So first I'm going to go over the build of the bristle worm trap. Then I'm going to show you some other things I also tried. And then I'm going to show you guys how well the trap worked the first week after I put it together. So let's get to it. So here's some video of how bad the infestation is, guys. And you can see them all in the live rock. Now, I didn't really worry about it too much. I've had these things for quite some time. Obviously not in the mass quantity that they are now. However, I didn't really feel I needed to remove them because they weren't doing any harm to anything. However, the last month or so, my carpet anemone has been not eating as much and just not looking as healthy. And he had basically unstuck himself from the base of the aquarium, which he's been in that same place for years. And I did notice when I lifted my carpet out of that tank, it was surrounded with bristle worms. Now, whether they were actually doing any harm to it or just bothering it enough where it was wanting to move, who knows? The other thing I tried, which is the final thing that made me want to get rid of these things, is I took a couple of them out and put them in with my puffers. They nipped at them once and then left them alone. So that told me they were nothing that I wanted in my system. So I decided to use a water bottle for this trap. I ended up using some 1/4-inch PEX tubing I had left over from another project. Right here I'm just taking a small drill bit and drilling the holes to get them started. I offset them from one side to the other so the tubes wouldn't meet each other. Then I got a bigger drill bit that was the same size as the outside diameter of the tubing. I had tried starting out with that size drill bit, but with the bottle being so flimsy, it would not push through. It was just denting the bottle. After getting the holes drilled, I took the 1/4-inch tubing and cut just short pieces that would fit into the bottle and made sure that they were not touching the other side so the worms would fall out of the tubes into the bottle and not be able to transfer from one 1/4-inch tube to the other one. The next thing I had to do was figure out what I was going to use for bait to lure the bristle worms into the trap. And what I ended up finding is a vacation feeder for saltwater fish. And I actually had one left over from the last vacation we took. So I ended up snapping that one in half so I could get it into the lid of the bottle. Once I got the bait in there, I wanted something to weigh the bottle down to make it easier to stay where I wanted it in the aquarium, and ended up just getting a couple little rocks and put those in there to act as an anchor, basically. Then I just put the lid on. I had forgot to drill a couple breather holes to make sure I could get all the air out of the bottle. If I were to have to build another one, I would use a bottle with stiffer sides because the drill bit would puncture through instead of necessarily cut out the bottle. And I did have some gaps around the tubes that the worms could escape from. But overall, the trap has worked well. Now I'm going to show you the results. I went ahead and put it in the aquarium. You can see the air getting out of those breather holes that I put in the top of the bottle. And I went ahead and put it next to the big rock because that's where most of these worms were at. I placed one of my other rocks on the other side of the tubes because there was quite a few worms in that one as well. So I tried watching to see if they would go in those tubes, but I think these guys for the most part are nocturnal because I never saw any of them actually go into the tube, but when I'd get up in the morning, I've had a good handful of the worms inside the bottle. So I drain this trap every day. However, after about a week, there was a day where I didn't get much out of it, so I left it for a second day. That didn't end up being that good of an idea because the water that came out of the bottle was very rank, probably from the decaying food being left in there too long. The first day was a little depressing because I only had 5 or 6 of the bristle worms in the trap. And all I would do is dump them out, rinse off the little rocks and the food, put them back in the bottle, and then replace it in the tank. Since I didn't have very much success on the first day, I was looking into other methods of getting rid of these things, and they said if I dipped the rocks in fresh water, it would stun the worms and they would come out and you could pick them off. It did work to a certain extent, but they would not come fully out of the rock. Then I tried getting a pair of needle nose pliers so I could pull them, and I ended up breaking several of them in half. So I kind of gave up on that because day 2 I actually got a better result out of the trap. So here's a view of what I got out of the bottle the second day. And I kept trying different places in the aquarium. The third day I ended up with the most that I've had, and I had that positioned directly on that big rock. And then here's day 4. Day 5 I moved it over to the other side of the aquarium on the other rock and didn't get much results. On day 6 I moved it back onto that big rock, but I tried putting it at the top because there's a bunch of them living up at the top of that thing, and I ended up getting a small handful again. So obviously that bristleworm trap was working pretty good. However, I do have a bunch of them still living on the top of this one rock. So one other thing I tried doing was sticking just the weekend feeder up on top of this rock, because I had a hard time stabilizing that bottle up there where the hoses would actually be on the rock so the bristleworms could get to them. And the reason I tried that is because one time when we went on vacation and had those weekend feeders in the tank, they ended up being covered with those bristleworms when I came back. So I figured if I set it up there, the next morning I could just lift it out really quick. But these worms are surprisingly quick, so most of them fell off before I got it out of the tank. So then I decided to get this pond decoration and set the food in the pond, and that way they could not jump off before I could get it out of the tank. And that actually did work, so it's something else you could try if you don't want to try building that trap. So during this process, unfortunately, I did lose my carpet anemone, which really sucks because he was over 8 years old. Now, whether it had anything to do with these bristleworms, I'm not for sure. What I do know is all my parameters for my system are in great shape, and I don't know of any other changes that have been made to account for the steady decline of him not eating and just not looking as healthy over the past couple months. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Kind of on a bummer note, but it is what it is. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it gave you some good information. If so, make sure you hit like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. One other note, guys, on these saltwater videos that I do, I don't post a monthly video or anything. I just do it when something drastically changes or I have something happen. And obviously I'll post a video if anything happens with any of the previous videos that I've done already and there's an update on those. I just don't want to waste your guys' time posting something when there's really not that much going on. My channel includes a wide variety of DIYs, all with the same concept. Save you guys money by doing it yourselves without wasting your time. Hope to see you next time. Later.